Hi, it's Laura with Following the Paper Trail, and it's the 11th day of the 12 projects of Christmas for 2025. Now, this is something that was inspired to a degree from a book that I did, and I did not write down what year this was. I think it was 2010, maybe 11. Something like that. But it's the beaded matchbook, where I made a matchbook style book that had beads in between the pages. As you can see from here, you can see the beads which separated the pages to allow for embellishments like these little Santa hats and stuff. And from this, because then it was a tied, so there's holes punched in the front and the back, and a ribbon strung through it, and in between you threaded the beads. But the idea behind that was to give some spacing between the pages. A couple of years ago, then I created something very similar, and this is using hardware from the hardware store, where these are bolts that are in between, and then these are folded canvas pieces that will eventually have signatures that will go in them. But same sort of concept of having something between the pages to give them some space. Then about 3 years ago, when I was doing the Seek, Gather, Create challenge that I co-host every February and August, and I did books, and this was like, I want to say 3 years ago. I created a binding for this doll book that had space in there, but rather than beads, because I didn't want that much space, it had little pieces of chipboard in it, so that just gave just a little bit of space between each of the pages. And the pages could be pretty much, as you can see, anything, whether they were contemporary pieces that I then added, coffee or tea or whatever dye to them to give them that age look, or they were actual aged pieces of paper in here, and then it will all get eventually embellished. But you can see how there's a little bit of space in between each page by putting in some little chipboard pieces. So just like with this one with beads in between to give a larger space, this one had little bits of chipboard in between to give a slightly thinner space. But by having something that creating that gap or space, it allows that breathing room, like I've talked about a few times now, but it allows some space in between for embellishments and stuff, so that your book doesn't explode out. For instance, this one, it's real wide at the top and narrower at the bottom, only because I haven't done all of the embellishments on the book. Once I do, the front of this book will come and lay flat. So what I'm doing, since I don't have a tutorial or anything for doing this one, I taught this one it was in 2023, down in Portland at Art and Soul. But other than that, I don't have any video tutorial for it. So I put together a couple of samples and some examples that we're going to do here right now. And with this one, this is done with envelopes. So, and then there's space in between, so you can see the space here, where I use fun foam, and it's about 1/8 of an inch thick. So the foam is between each of the envelopes, and it could be this way too if you wanted the envelopes, the back of the envelopes to face forward. But you could then put tags or whatever, trifolds, even some thinner signatures in each of these, and then you could also embellish. This flap could also allow for you to have something attached to that flap as an extra page. But by having that gap space of about 1/8 of an inch in between, it allows you to be able to do that. So this is just This one literally takes, 20 minutes to do. And I just use, you can glue or you can use adhesive tape to attach the fun foam in between each of the envelopes. So I have one here ready to go that's using I had done a bunch of the pages already, but I just use thin chipboard, and this can be cereal box or other kind of packaging box. If it's super thin, you might want to do 2 thicknesses. And then I just have adhesive tape on each side of it. So with these pages, I cut them to whatever size. I have added like a 5/8 of an inch binding strip that I scored. So each of the pages is scored so that they'll fold easily. It's not super critical that these are perfectly aligned. I did set these back in 1/8 of an inch because these are 1/2 inch strips and a 5/8. So that sets them in about 1/8 of an inch. So then on the ends, you don't see the chipboard as obviously. You could also have this overhang by quite a bit and have it be so that it does get kind of crumpled and rumpled if you want that kind of look. So as I said, the pages, I have a scored section on them that is part of the binding. And so I'm just going to take these strips, and it's the same if you're using fun foam or you're using the chipboard. And I'm just going to line it up. Now I've lined it up right next to that fold. Don't go over. And then you have 1/8 of an inch left. So again, so you don't see the chipboard as readily. Peel this guy off. Line that up. Stick it down. Do it again for another one. And I lay this right next to that fold. And then peel that off. Now you can do this with glue if you prefer. It's just super quick and easy with the score tape. But you do want to use a strong adhesive type of tape. For a little bit, a strong adhesive type of tape versus a lesser tape that's not going to hold. Because if it's not a strong adhesive, your book could start coming apart. Now this one I have quite a few pages in. And this is just a mixed media paper so that I can do whatever I want to onto it later. So then before I just get going peeling away, so I can have one on the front and the back, because then I have a cover that I have made that to fit, so it's just slightly larger and then folds up and around, so it has you could make it a full cover. I decided just to make it to where it wrapped around to the front just at the binding section, so I can line that up. So this is slightly narrower or slightly wider, so that's why I'm going ahead and doing it that way. So then I can take and peel this off and wrap that nice and snug up against there. So you can then see how it gives you the gap in between the pages that can allow for any collage or other embellishments that I'm going to do. And then you can also just take and wrap around this top section. So this cut kind of helps cover over these ends by having something to wrap on there. So I have some ribbon. I probably would glue it in the back before I tie it. Or I can do it after I tie it too. So just do a little knot. So it just adds a little bit of additional, but I would probably go ahead and attach it onto the back. So that just gives a cute, it can either be this way or this way to where, look in the book. On this one, when I did a wrap on it, this is just a little strip of fabric that I attached onto there and tied it. So quick and easy. I could put some sort of other paper onto the front to create a cover since I decided I didn't want a full front cover. Another way you can do one of these is you can also make it with fabric pages. And I'm going to do this one slightly differently. So I know this is basically the size of the book that I want. And so I am taking, and I have a light that I don't have on. Hang on. Why is it dark? There we go. Now we have little more light. So sorry about that. So I'm going to fold this in half and finger press it. And then these are with the fun foam. And now this is fun foam with adhesive on it. So I used adhesive on one side. So I'm going to lay this right at that center fold. And then I am going to wrap my fabric around. I have some tape on this other side. So I'm going to wrap that. And then I'm going to take my foam strips again and stick it down, one on each side. And then I'm going to take another strip. Now I have these plenty long enough because then I can trim it. So I'm going to lay this on here to where it's lining up at one end so I can peel my tape off, paper off my tape. So line up that end. And these are just torn strips of the fabric because I like the torn edge. Okay, so start out with one, and now I've got one on each side. And again, I'm wrapping it around nice and snug. And then I can take, so that it's the same length as the others, I'm going to take and just trim that, tear it. Now I can do the same thing. One of these on each side. So what this is doing is it's creating a nice finished end. And you could do this also with paper if you wanted. I just wanted to show you how versatile this was. It can work with either paper or fabric. So there's the three in the center that are wrapped, and then one on each side again. And I can take another strip, line it up so that my pages are the same length. Peel that off. Stick that down. And then again, this is going to wrap around the end. So see how that's giving a nice finished end on there. Again, I want that torn end. And yes, you'll have some little threads. It's fine. You can clean those off later. And then another that lines up on each side. So it sandwiches in between. Lay this on here. Peel my tape off. Lay it so it's nice and in the center. Wrap this around nice and taut. So again, see, that's giving this that nice finished. And then I have last two, because then I have some covers that I've made. Now, these are just a little piece of chipboard. It's got a hinge in there. So it's a piece of chipboard, the size I want for my cover. It's going to be, so I want it to be slightly larger than how the book is going to be. So it's, the chipboard is that size. And then I have another small piece of chipboard that's the width of my foam, which is at 1/2 inch. And so then I laid that onto my fabric, leaving this gap. That's about 1/8 of an inch gap as the joint. And then I've wrapped the fabric around and wrapped it completely over this because this is going to attach down here. And then there's a second one to go on the back. So that gives me a nice cover on there. Now, you can attach this directly to the piece here, and I'm going to cover this with some paper when I'm actually embellishing this book. So then I have these fabric pages in here, which can be embellished just as if they were paper, or I can do a stitch book or something like that. So I can attach that directly. Then I have a really nice, clean little spine. The other option is to go ahead and put some fun foam pieces in there. And as long as they're not some weird color. So it's kind of up to you as to whether you want to have that little extra piece in there. The other thing I had thought about doing is taking some of these scrap pieces, and I could wrap this guy. Let's just do it. Oh, I put the tape on I put it on the wrong side. So I'm going to take and put that right at the edge. And then I need some more tape because I put the tape on the paper backing instead of on my piece. I don't have very many fingernails these days. It's always funny going back and watching my old videos when I used to get my nails all done and stuff. And I'm like going, yeah, I'm not about that anymore. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this one. And I'll do it again. I'll grab another one of these little pieces I chopped off. Pull some of the threads off. Now this one I did it right, so. Peel this off. Because I want that nice, you know, I go to the trouble of doing the nice wrapped spine. So I just want to. Now, if I weren't doing this quickly for this demo, I would probably put glue on here as well. I'll probably go back and pull these off and put some glue on it. But for speed purposes, I'm just going to pop some tape on here and I can fix it after. But because I want the space for my cover as well. So we'll go ahead and stick this and then peel this off, and I put that end joint piece of my cover, lining it up. It's centering the book. Flip it over, put this guy on there. And the fold covered and edge goes again where the spine, because this part won't really show, it's down inside. And again, the jointed part. But see how that gives a nice clean covered end, whether it was in paper or fabric, it would still give you that nice clean finished edge. And then again, taking some ribbon, tying it around. Trim that off, but gives a nice clean finish. And then I have these, it'll lay nice and flat. I'll cover this with some pattern paper And then that gives me some fabric pages, whether I want to stitch on them, put some paper on them, do any kind of collage, whatever on there. But that, again, gives you a nice little book, whether you want it vertical or horizontal. So there you go, with some spaced pages. You know, it's I got to come up with a fun name for it. Also, like this book is one that I could bebop down into. Oh, there's stuff in there. Why does it not want to go in? Did I make it too tall? It's probably too tall or too wide. I thought it would fit in there. Oh, no, it does. Well, if that was glued on, it would fit just fine. So you could do a book down into a box like we did the other day. But I'd have to glue this on for it to fit right. It's a snug fit. Or I'd just maybe make a bigger box. But anyway, it gives you some spaced out binding. Maybe that's what I should call it, because I'm feeling really spaced out. It's taken me all day to get to the point where I could film this video. But so this spaced binding, so it allows the gap between the pages, which was in turn inspired by my beaded matchbook, which then became the spaced one that I have in here, and using either fun foam or chipboard. The fun foam obviously gives a larger gap, but it's a fun way to give a little bit of separation between your pages so they're not so tied up against each other. And you can also do it out of fabric. So anyway, hope you enjoy this one. Thanks a bunch.